a complete disregard for the harmful effects of PFAS. And the fear is that for decades to come, you're going to see the injuries caused by their conduct.
Wow. And now part 3 in our 11 News Investigates exclusive series, Toxic Legacy. Maryland's Attorney General recently sued the maker of Gore-Tex. That lawsuit accuses the company of harming Maryland's environment by releasing toxic forever chemicals.
This comes after we reported last week on a new study which found that PFAS is in the blood of every Maryland resident tested. Investigative reporter Tali Taylor sits down with Attorney General Anthony Brown to talk about why he filed this lawsuit.
Brown says that for decades, while W.L. Gore & Associates was selling billions of dollars worth of products, the company was also releasing PFAS into the air, soil, and groundwater. Knowing the danger of what it was doing, Brown alleges, and concealing it. In December, Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown filed this lawsuit against W.L. Gore & Associates for contaminating the areas around 13 of its Cecil County facilities seen here with PFAS. Why file this lawsuit against the maker of Gore-Tex?
We've undergone an investigation, which is not complete because that's part of litigation. We see violations of the law by W.L. Gore. It's pretty striking the extent to which W.L. Gore has contaminated the soil, the groundwater in Maryland.
They were especially interested in whether two forever chemicals, PFOS and PFOA. 11 News Investigates revealed last week that a first-of-its-kind study testing the blood of Maryland residents from all over the state for PFAS found contamination in all 41 volunteers, with the vast majority of them at risk for serious health problems. The Attorney General's lawsuit zeroes in on one of the nearly indestructible toxins manufactured by Gore for decades, PFOA, which research has linked to kidney and testicular cancer, pregnancy complications, and more.
There are a number of claims that we're alleging against W.L. Gore for their misconduct, so we believe it's a strong case both on legal grounds and the facts.
One of those claims, that Gore knew about the dangers of PFOA by 1990 at the latest, when one of DuPont's scientists took his years of knowledge and experience working with PFOA issues at DuPont to Gore. Gore didn't stop using the toxin in his manufacturing process until the end of 2013. Can you elaborate any more on that?
Well, I'm not going to go much beyond the complaint because we are in the middle of litigation. So it's our belief, and we've got strong information to show it, that they knew of the violations. They didn't do anything about it.
Another theme in the complaint seems to be that while Gore would go so far looking into a problem, the Maryland Department of Environment had to then come in and pick up the tab to really check everything that they wanted. Is that accurate?
That's an accurate assessment, and it's not just about the money too, right? It certainly don't want taxpayers to pick up the tab for investigations, for remediation, for abatement, for the sampling, but perhaps even more important, we want to address the damages that were done to Maryland.
This isn't the first time the Attorney General has sued companies for this. In May 2023, Brown filed 2 lawsuits suing 3M, DuPont, and more than a dozen other companies for environmental contamination and public health harm, a result of their use of PFAS.
It was the first affirmative litigation that I authorized as Attorney General.
11 News Investigates captured the 13 Gore sites from above, clustered together in the Elkton area. Part of what you say in the complaint is that Cherry Hill, at Fair Hill, at Appleton South, there was water testing that found 200 to 250 times the legal limit of PFAS in the drinking water. What was your response to learning that?
Well, it's astonishing. It's not seen, it's not smelled, and it's so often just unknown to your typical Marylander, right? You don't know when and where you'll be exposed. So it's striking that you have, and alarming that you have a company that knew the dangers of PFAS.
In a statement, a spokesperson for the company says Gore's actions have reflected the emerging science of PFAS, and writes in part, W.L. Gore & Associates denies the allegations in the complaint and is surprised by the Maryland Attorney General's decision to initiate legal action, particularly in light of our proactive and intensive engagement with state regulators over the past 2 years. And Gore's website provides data about their work, showing maps of where they've tested the soil, where they've offered to sample residential wells, and listing data about how many residents have been offered bottled water or paid to connect to their water utility. The spokesperson writes, This demonstrates Gore's continuous, proactive engagement with the Maryland regulators since learning 2 years ago about the presence of PFOA in groundwater near our Cherry Hill facility.
What's your response to that?
For W.L. Gore to say that they're surprised, well, when you're not doing everything you're supposed to do, then I guess you're caught by surprise. But there's certainly more that needs to be done, and that's what we're doing.
Last month, Attorney General Anthony Brown joined 17 other attorneys general filing an amicus brief in federal court, urging the Trump administration not to throw out a new rule about PFAS contamination in drinking water. The AG arguing that keeping the rule would significantly improve public health. For 11 News Investigates, I'm Tolly Taylor.